Welcome to the Flourish Frequency, the show where we activate and amplify the frequencies of success, joy, and abundance. I'm your host, Beth Larsen, a high-performance and quantum success coach. If you're ready to ditch the hard hustle and embrace a more effortless flow, then this is the show for you. Together, we'll tap into quantum thinking, harness the laws of the universe, and unlock the secrets to living a life of more. More joy, more energy, more passion, more money, and more meaning. No more simply surviving, we're going beyond thriving. It's time to flourish. The Flourish Frequency Show starts now. Hello, and I have a question for you today. Have you ever looked in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back? Maybe her spark feels dulled, or her eyes a little tired, or the lightness and the aliveness, or just the you-ness feels just out of reach. Or maybe you've caught a glimpse of yourself in a photo and felt a pang of longing, not so much for how you looked, but for how you used to feel, more alive, more vibrant, just more you. Well, today I want to invite you to consider that it's not time that's stealing your radiance and your vitality. It's actually living in a state of surviving or even striving when your body is meant to be flourishing. So welcome back to the Flourish Frequency, where we explore what it means to live in alignment with your highest frequency and to create a life that feels good on the inside and looks great on the outside. In today's episode, we're going to talk about what I call the Flourish Glow. It's the kind of radiance that doesn't come from a filter or a facial, but from frequency, from energy, from truth. I'm going to be sharing what flourishing really means and how it shows up in your body, your skin, and your energy. How alignment is really, I believe, the real fountain of youth. And the frequency building tools and practices that I return to again and again to nurture the version of me that feels most alive, most magnetic, and most at home in her skin. The real glow up doesn't come from a bottle or a beauty trend. It comes from soul alignment. So let's dive in. So I wanted to just share first a little bit about what inspired this episode. So last week I had a birthday. Turned 57 last week. And when I woke up that morning, I felt so alive, so vibrant. I had so much energy and I was so excited for the day. And I remember thinking, I feel younger than I did 20 years ago. Like, I definitely don't remember feeling like this when I was 37. And I wouldn't say, I didn't have energy back then, but nothing like I have now. And I felt so amazing that I wanted to capture the feeling. And so I took a selfie. And anybody that knows me knows that I'm not a selfie girl. I do not take any selfies. I barely take pictures. I don't love having my picture taken, but I wanted to capture this. And I wanted to capture the feeling, and I wanted it to be, have a memory of it. And so I took that selfie and then I posted it on Facebook and Instagram, and I proudly declared that I was 57 and that this is what 57 looks like. And I started to get messages and comments, things like, there's no way you're 57 and you're glowing and you look like you're aging backwards. And then I started to get some DMs asking me, what am I actually doing? And have I had surgery or gotten Botox or fillers or any of that? And so I started to laugh. But here's the thing. I know that people are going to tell you really nice things on your birthday. And I know that when you're posting a post saying, I feel amazing, and this is what 57 looks like, and you're proud of it, that people are also going to comment nicely on that. Like, nobody's going to give you a bad comment and tell you, no, you actually look 67. So I know that, I get that. But it got me really thinking, because over the last 6 months, I've been getting these comments over and over and over again from people who've known me for a long time. And I started to really think, there's something that I have been doing differently over the last 6 months. And I wanted to start to share some of the different things that I've been doing that contribute to what I call this Flourish Glow. I have not had any work done. I don't do Botox. I don't do fillers. I don't have plastic surgery. I do regular facials because that's self-care for me, but I haven't done any other work. And I wanted to make that really clear. And I'm not opposed to it, and I'm not against anybody else doing it. It's just a personal choice for me that I don't want to do it. But what I have done is a lot of inner work. And I believe that that inner work has a lot to do with the glow that you're seeing on the outside. So the real reason I wanted to share this episode was really to redefine radiance, to redefine aging, vitality, and alignment from the inside out. So let's talk first and foremost what flourishing really means. For me, flourishing is a word that has a very deep meaning to it, deep connotation. About 15 years ago, I was in a place where I definitely was not flourishing. I mean, I had the success on the outside, but inside, I was not flourishing. My body was showing it. I was tired. At the time, I was traveling for my job a lot, every single week, planes, trains, and automobiles. I was working long hours, and I was honestly doing work at the time that it was no longer lighting me up. And it was definitely showing up on the outside. It was showing up in my health. It was showing up in my vitality. It was showing up in brain fog, all kinds of things. So I was definitely not flourishing at that time. And I remember that I used to keep saying, I would describe it to my friends or to my parents at the time and doctors, just saying, like, I felt like I was dying on the vine. I felt like I was losing all my life force energy. I felt like one of those plants that was just wilting. And that's the picture that would come up in my mind. And all I wanted to do at the time was to thrive. I wanted to get back to that place where I was thriving again, not just in business and success, but that I was actually thriving, that I had this energy that I could get up and get excited, and that I was excited by what I was doing. So I started to, I walked away from the career that was actually draining me at that point, and I started to do some work at that time for myself, taking care of myself, getting my health back on track, and starting to really decide what I wanted to do next with my life and the next stage of my career. And at that point, I remember thinking, yeah, I want to get back to thriving again. I want to get back to thriving and feeling better. And then I'm going to go back and do what I was doing and do it better. Only I knew that something wasn't quite right still. And so I thought of thriving and I closed my eyes. I remember this so vividly, closing my eyes and trying to picture what thriving looked like and felt like for me. And what came up for me was this picture of those plants that you see that are coming up through the concrete. They're definitely not dying. They're not just surviving. They are determined, and they're going to push through the hardest of the hard, and they are going to make it. And they are going to thrive despite the circumstances, no matter what. And that immediately sunk in for me. It's like, wait a minute, I know that life. I know how to do that life. I know how to push and effort and do things the hard way. And I know how to have the success and have it show on the outside. So you've got the thriving. But that was not what I was looking for. There was something still that was missing. There was something that was beyond that. And the word that popped into my mind at that point was flourishing. I wanted to flourish. And so I closed my eyes again and I tuned in. And the picture that came up for me at that point was this vision of this amazing field of flowers. So many flowers, thousands of flowers, and so much vibrancy and so much color. And, they were swaying in the wind, and there was this beautiful fragrance that I could smell that was just so beautiful and sweet. And it was like these flowers were all swaying together and supporting each other. And that's when it landed for me. It's like flourishing. That's what I want. I want to be in a place where I'm flourishing. And so I looked up flourishing to see really, is this the word that's capturing what I really want? And I looked it up in the dictionary and it nailed it. It's beyond thriving. It's growing luxuriously. It's reaching new heights of development and prospering. And it also means a bold or a sweeping gesture. So I thought immediately, yeah, that's it. I'm all those things. I'm growing luxuriously. I'm reaching new heights of development. I'm prospering, but I'm also showing up with a boldness in my life. not afraid to show up with boldness. And flourishing, it's that state where your frequency leads and your life follows, including your health and your appearance and your glow. And so that for me is when I landed on the word flourish. And I've put it into so much of my business. You know, here we are on this show right now, the Flourish Frequency. I also have the Flourish Alchemy membership program. I've got the Flourish Fusion Mastermind. So flourish is something that I incorporate into all parts of my business everywhere I can. There's another piece of this that when I think about what I've been doing over the last 6 months, that has allowed me to step into a different level of flourishing, right? Into that next level that's going and that's reaching a new height of development. And that's starting to really show up to people. Because like I said, I've been getting these comments more and more over the last 6 months. And it was not from posting a picture online and proudly proclaiming how great I felt. It was just random that these comments are coming over and over again. And so I started thinking about it, and there's something else. There's a couple of things that I'm going to share here today that I've been doing consistently that I really do believe is showing up in an outer glow. Now, one of these is practicing living in Kairos. I did an episode, I think it was October or November last year. If you want to hear more about this and go deeper into it, it was called Living Kairos in a Chronos World, or Living in Chronos Time, something like that. But Kairos is something that I started to really embrace. And so much so that I actually made it my word of the year this year. It's the theme for myself this year. So what Kairos is, Kairos and Chronos are two ways that the Greeks look at time. Chronos, and they were both Greek gods in Greek mythology. So Chronos is depicted as like Father Time. You would see him as an old man, bent over, long white beard, carrying a staff. And he represents the minutes or linear time or quantitative time. Then you've got Kairos. And Kairos was this beautiful young god. And you would see him depicted with wings on his feet. He had this lock of blonde hair, a curl over his forehead. And in back, he was completely bald. And Kairos is the god of the moments. He was the god of the qualitative time, as opposed to the quantitative time. And it was really, he represents making the most of the moments. And when you see him with the wings on his feet, it represented opportunity, because he was also the god of opportunity. And what that meant was that when you saw him coming, you could grab him by that lock of hair on his forehead. But if once he passed you, you couldn't get him back. It was gone. And so I want to invite you to think about that for a second, because he's the god of moments, but also the god of opportunity. And we're not talking about opportunities like a job opportunity. We're talking about opportunities to be present in the moment. So take that in for a second. Being present in the moment, seizing the opportunity. And who are you being in the moment? That's what I wanted to bring into my life this year. That's why I made it my theme for this year, and why I've really worked to incorporate it consistently over the last 6 months. It's grabbing and seizing the opportunities to be. So part of that is, what do I want to be? How do I want to show up this year? How do I want to feel? Well, I wanted to feel courageous. I wanted to feel abundant. I wanted to feel alive. I wanted to feel magnetic. I wanted to feel strong. All of these were states of being that I decided I wanted to be this year. And as I've practiced Kairos, I've noticed that the universe keeps giving me opportunities to be. The universe is bringing me opportunities to be courageous, to be strong, to be bold, to be magnetic, to flourish, to be flourishing. And that's despite whatever is going on outside of you. It doesn't matter what your circumstances are for you to decide to be things. And oftentimes it's the very circumstances that are actually giving you the opportunity to be. So me choosing that as a theme for the year meant that I knew that the universe was going to be giving me all kinds of opportunities this year to be all of these things. And was I ready to sign on for it? And yes, I was. And what I can say is every single time that I have seized the opportunity and I've allowed myself to actually step in and be something that I've chosen to be, I feel the energy. I feel the surge. And I know that that energy is what's showing up on the outside world. I know that's a very big part of where the flourish glow comes from, is by moving into alignment and being what I've chosen to be. So I think I've shared this a couple of times on the show. You know, the last couple of years weren't the easiest years for me from a standpoint of I was navigating life with having found out that both of my parents have different stages of dementia. So there's been a lot of stress over the last couple of years on the outside in terms of just navigating a lot. And what I knew more than anything was that I wanted to be present in the moments with them and to be able to savor these moments and be able to really take advantage of them. And so that meant for me that I needed to build capacity from the inside so that I could handle everything without letting the stress take over and seep my energy, take my energy away from me. So that was building inner capacity that was really important, but also it was going to require me to build outer capacity, that it was going to require that I actually hire support, that I get additional people to help me so that I could make the most of the moments. And so again, I wanted to touch on this because when we're talking here about flourishing, it's very easy for us to go through life letting the outside world sap your energy and take everything away from you because stress is going to be out there all the time. There's always going to be things that you can't control in the outer world. But what you can control is how you show up and how you decide to be and how you decide to allow yourself to receive so that you can keep nourishing and you can continue to actually flourish. Just because the minutes are going by does not mean that you have to age at the same rate. The time itself may be passing, but you can feel younger and younger and younger every day. I know I do. Sure, I have days where I might be tired, but in general, I literally feel 20 years younger. And I want this for everybody. So if you're listening to this and this is resonating for you, then continue to follow me here. I'm going to dive into a few more things that I think are really contributing to this. We're going to take a quick break here, but I want to remind you a couple of things. The outer world always follows the inner world, always. So you can go out there and you can buy all the skincare and you can put the things on your skin to create a glow. But if you're glowing from the inside out, you don't need to do all that. It will show on the outside if you're tending to the glow from the inside. So just remember that the outer follows the inner, and that includes your skin, your energy, your body, and your glow. So we're going to take a quick break here. And when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about what alignment really means or what it's meant for me. What do I mean by alignment? And what are some tools that I've actually been using over the last couple of years to help me get more and more and more into alignment for myself? And that alignment is showing up on the outside. All right, we'll take a quick break and be right back. All right, welcome back here to the Flourish Frequency, where we are talking today about living your flourish glow, where you glow, your glow is so, feels so good on the inside that it's showing on the outside and people start commenting about it. So here's what I want to talk about now, this idea of being in alignment. Here's the thing, you glow differently when you live in harmony with your true self. Now, I mentioned that I've been using a couple of tools over the past couple of years, actually, past few years, I would say. And these are human design and gene keys. So if you're not familiar with these, human design it's like an energetic operating system. It's based on your birth time. It incorporates astrology, it incorporates Kabbalah, the chakra system, the I Ching. It's all rolled up into it, and it really helps you understand how you're designed to make decisions, to use your energy, and to interact with the world. And then Gene Keys builds on that by showing the deeper shadows and the gifts that are encoded in your DNA and how your frequency creates your reality. So, together, the two of them are something that I've been studying now for a couple of years, actually, maybe probably a little bit longer than that, but I've been going much deeper over the last year and a half. I'm actually in the process of getting a certification in both, so that I can really incorporate it even further into my business. I believe in these so strongly because they've really given me an understanding of how my energy works, how I can move into alignment for the most energy, and how to know when I'm operating in low frequency and how to move into a higher frequency. And again, these are things that, as the more I've learned about them, the more it's actually showing up in my actual energy and how I'm feeling, and then that's contributing to what's showing up on the outside. So, human design and gene keys, both of them, it's not something that you can do real justice to in a 60-minute podcast. Like, it just doesn't work that way. It's something that you actually study and you contemplate, especially with gene keys, you contemplate it not so much from the mind, but from the heart and from the body. And you really kind of let it land and activate these keys that are in you already. But I'll give you kind of a brief overview of what I think specifically is like the easiest part to understand and how it relates to what we're talking about here today. So in human design, you've got 5 different profiles or strategies, they call them, in terms of the way that you work with your energy in your life. So you can be what's called a manifester, a manifesting generator, a generator, reflector, or a projector. And these all describe different ways of which the energy works. So, for example, I'm a generator. And what I learned that as a generator, what that means is that I have an abundant energy resource available to me at all times, but only for the right things. So when I'm doing something that I'm totally lit up about, that I am excited about, that is completely aligned for me, I could have energy to go all day long doing it, fall into bed at night, exhausted, but in a good way, sleep all night long, and come back the next day ready to go again. And that's the way my energy is designed. Somebody who's a projector would have more energy that's more kind of touch and go, like throughout the day. They don't have that same consistent stream of energy available to them. So they really have to pay attention to their environment and who they're surrounded with and how they're spending their time there. But again, for me as a generator, what I learned is when I'm lit up about something, that energy's there. And when I'm not, that energy is not there. And that was something that was really powerful for me, because what it really brought to my attention was that when I looked back on my life and I looked at it and saw when I was fully aligned, that's when I was vibrant. That's when I was in that place where I felt like I was thriving and I was going all day. And then when I was not and excited about something, or maybe the circumstances changed and I had outgrown a couple of situations, so they were no longer in alignment for me. Didn't mean that the situations were bad per se. It just meant that I had outgrown them and it was no longer in alignment. And what would happen is I would get really frustrated. Now, frustrated for me as a generator is a sign that I am out of alignment. That's like the first signal that something is wrong. And when you're frustrated, you get depleted and even start to get resentful. And just that's where the life force energy starts getting drained. That's where it all begins. And so again, I could look back even on my career and see the times when I was totally in my generator energy and doing exactly what I wanted to be doing and really thriving. Probably never quite at that space of flourishing, not as I describe it today. But at the time, I definitely would have been in a place where I felt like I was thriving. But then I could also see the moments where I moved into frustration. And it didn't always happen overnight, but often it would be at a place where, again, I had outgrown a situation. So that was a really important thing for me. And so part of, again, being a generator is understanding what are my yeses and what are my nos, right? Where am I saying yes to things in my life that I really want to be saying no to? And where might I be saying no to things that I really want to be saying yes to? Because those are the two biggest misalignments right there. You say yes to something you want to say no to, or you say no to something you want to say yes to. That's immediately going to put you into a state of frustration. That's going to drain your energy. That's going to start to, that's all from the inside, it's draining, but it's going to start to show up on the outside. And honestly, when I think back on it, that is exactly the pattern and how it led to burnout for me. It's also how I started to come back online, like physically and energetically, started to come back online, started to come back alive again. I was no longer that plant that was wilting, but I started to, it's like somebody was watering me again, right? When I started to say yes to the yeses and no to the nos. And that's when my plant started to come back to life. And the more I've done that, the more I feel alive. And again, the more it shows. So that's really important, is honoring your yeses and your nos. And that's really from the the human design side of things. The gene keys goes even deeper. One of my mentors actually shared that you can kind of look at human design as like the masculine approach to things. It's more about the structure of how your energy works. And then gene keys is more of the feminine. It's more, again, it's that contemplation, and you really look at it with more curiosity and go into it with more depth. And so gene keys has also allowed me to go much deeper into understanding not just the simple saying yes to the yeses and no to the nos, but understanding where I'm showing up, in the shadow frequency, which is the lowest frequency of a particular key, if you will. And where I have opportunity, and when I lean into the gifts that are also available within that same shadow. So the way it works is each of the keys, there's 64 keys total, but each of the keys has a range of frequency to it. So you can have the shadow frequency, which is going to be the lowest frequency. You have the gift, which is the next highest frequency. And then you have what's called the city, or the highest frequency. And you're really looking to lean into your gifts. The way that you neutralize the shadow is by leaning into the gift. It's not like you're trying to fix your shadow. So if I'm showing up in low shadow frequency, I'm not trying to fix it, but when I lean into my gift, it naturally alchemizes that energy. I raise up in energy, I raise up in frequency, and you'll feel it. And when you start to do that, you also start to open up access to that highest frequency. It's not that you're living in that highest frequency all the time, but you open up the access to it, and you start to like touch that frequency on a regular basis. And so when you're looking at gene keys, you've got, just as a foundation, you've got a gene key that's devoted to your life's work. You've got a gene key that's devoted to your evolution. And those two gene keys will kind of work in tandem with each other to create a challenge in your life for you. And it's called a pathway of challenge between those two keys. And what it does is it gives you an opportunity in the challenge to grow and evolve. And when you're growing and evolving, right, you are in a state of flourishing. That's growth right there. So working between the life's work and the evolution key, the more I understood about that for myself, and the more I embraced it and started to really lean into my gifts in both of those areas, the more it unlocked so much energy for me. And it created what's called a breakthrough. And from the gene key of evolution over to the gene key of radiance, there's an actual gene key called radiance, is what's called the pathway of breakthrough. So you have this breakthrough, which then unlocks all this energy in the radiance key, right? This radiance key which is all about your life force energy. And so something really interesting for me happened when I started to really dive deeper into all of this. And I started to use it to evolve and grow for myself. I would have these breakthroughs and I'd have more energy available to me out of my radiance key. And something that was really interesting that I learned in my radiance key that was like the hidden little treasure of energy was that my shadow was all about staying in things too long. So what I mean by that is I have a pattern, and I can see this clearly as I look back through my own career history, a pattern of staying in things too long, relationships or partnerships or roles, and doing it out of misplaced loyalty. It was a pattern that was actually a form of fear. It was a fear of being seen as disloyal, or a fear of letting someone down, or a fear of rocking the boat. I saw this a lot, when I look at my career. And I think it came a lot from growing up. I grew up believing that you went to work for a company and you were really loyal to it. My dad worked he worked for a couple of companies, but for long periods of time. He spent most of his career in one particular career or one particular company. And so, of course, it was instilled in me to be loyal. And so that sense of loyalty is a pattern that is actually within my gene keys. So it was gonna naturally happen for me in my life. And as soon as I realized this, I realized it was misplaced loyalty, because the thing that's most important is I have to be loyal to myself first. I have to be loyal to, what I'm really here to do in this world, and the things of my purpose and what I'm here to make a difference of in this world. And I have to be true to myself. And what was happening is I would sacrifice myself for a company or another person, another situation, and it would be taking away from my own life force energy. So that was like a huge breakthrough for me. And as soon as I realized it, and I realized what I had to do, that's when I had this immediate surge in energy. It came back. Now it was not easy, because when I say I knew what I had to do was start saying no to some things that I had said yes to, and saying yes to things that I had said no to before, meaning I had to say no to other things so that I could say yes to me. And that took courage. So this is where, Kairos, what I was talking about earlier. And when I look back over the last 6 months, this has been a big place where I have had to actually step into these Kairos opportunities and step into saying yes to me and saying no to things that just don't align for me. I looked at it and I realized I thought most of this was in my past. When I look back into the old corporate life, right? I thought a lot of it was there, but I realized I had actually created the same pattern again, even in my own coaching business. I had a part of my business where I had actually taken on a role for a mentor of mine who I love to death. But I took on this role out of loyalty. And as I started to do the role, I didn't love it. There were parts of it that just were not aligned for me. It doesn't mean that the role was a bad role. And it certainly doesn't mean that she was not a great person and not still a mentor for me. But it was, this particular role was not right for me. And I had to realize I had been doing it for quite a while and only doing it out of loyalty. And it was in that moment when I had that aha that I realized, oh my gosh, I have to do something. And my biggest fear came up. And that was the fear of letting her down. That was the one thing I did not want to do. And so it took a lot of courage for me to have that conversation. But the minute I did, I'm going to say it again. You'll hear me keep repeating this. The minute I did the thing and I had the conversation, I did what my soul was calling me to do. And I said yes to me, an immediate surge in energy, immediate surge. I felt lighter. I felt more empowered. I immediately felt focused again. And immediately I saw it impacting in the rest of my business. Things were popping all over the place in my business. And that had nothing to do with this. I wasn't doing anything different at that point. The only thing that had changed was my energy. And again, this was over the course of the last 6 months. So when I keep talking here about how I was started to get these comments about my outer appearance, about the glow, about something's different, about the energy, these are all pieces of it. These are all parts of it. These are all pieces of the puzzle. And you can see that, again, it's not that I went and got anything done. It's not that I was using different skincare. It's not that I was doing any of that. It isn't even so much that I was doing anything different in terms of diet and nutrition, although I do believe in those strongly for contributing to a glow. Drinking structured water, hydration, incredibly important. And yes, the food you put in your body is going to show up on the outside, definitely. But it's not that changed for me. I had already changed all of that a while ago. What was changing was really how I was interacting with my energy, how I was working myself into alignment, and how I was choosing to show up in the beingness, being the highest version of myself, living my truth, letting go of what was no longer aligned for me. That's when the energy showed up. So just as a reminder here, a few things. Your loyalty needs to be to yourself first. I don't know who out there might share that same pattern, but if you share that same pattern with me, consider that your loyalty has to be to yourself first, and then to somebody else. Honor your yeses and your nos. And when you do, they will immediately give you energy back. And knowing what to say yes and no to is really important. So I definitely encourage people to check out human design, check out Gene Keys. I'm incorporating it into my business now, and I have been. And I can see it with my clients. This is not just a me thing. I am a generator in terms of my energy, but I have clients who are projectors, reflectors, and manifestors, and their energy works a little bit differently. But in my helping them align with their energy and the way their energy works, I'm seeing the same thing showing up in my clients. I can see it when I'm on a call with them, and I can see an aura around their body and face, and it's lit up, and it wasn't there before. And we can see it in the success and the results that are coming through. So I highly recommend both of those. So we're going to take another quick break here. And when we come back, what I want to talk a little bit about is some of the other tools and techniques that I've been using that I also believe are actually contributing to this glow outside of just alignment, but it's more of like the support system, the tools and the resources that I use to actually keep that glow going. So we'll be back in a couple minutes. All right, welcome back here to the Flourish Frequency, where today we're talking about that flourish glow. And we've been talking about what flourishing really is, and how to move into alignment, and how to show up being the version of you that you really want to be, and how that actually shows up in your outer glow. So much so that people are going to comment on it. People are going to notice it. And so what I wanted to do now is really kind of touch on what I think of as the added glow, the breath, the body, and the nervous system beauty practices, if you will. These are embodiment practices that aren't about the extra, though. They're the amplifier. So breath work, I've talked about several times on the show in the past. I am actually a breathwork facilitator. And that actually happened because a couple of years ago, well, it was about a year and a half ago, when I was actually dealing with all of the stress in my life and the stressors, I knew that there was something I wanted to do for myself, and that was take a retreat. And I chose a retreat that was actually a breathwork retreat, and it was in Iceland, and it was called a fire and ice retreat. And so flew to Iceland for the week, and each day we did breath work, and it was 9D breath work with 9 dimensions. that are incorporated in this type of breath work. And that's actually what I'm certified in. So when I got there, we did these breathwork journeys every single day, but we also did these other practices all the while throughout the week. We were leading up to the end of the week where we were going to actually swim under the ice. So what that means is in Iceland, what they do is they take a chainsaw out to a lake, a frozen lake, and they take the chainsaw and they will cut a couple of holes in the ice, and you go down under one and you swim over to the other and you come back out, and you are swimming under a frozen lake. And we're talking, I mean, it's at least a couple of feet of ice that you're swimming under. And so we had to kind of work ourselves up to that throughout the week. So every day we would do some practices being out in the cold. Like one morning, I remember that after the breathwork journey, they had us take off like our shoes, socks, and we literally just had a t-shirt and I think jeans on, and had to go outside and walk around the hotel several times, like the entire hotel. And I remember being so cold, and I couldn't even believe that I was actually capable of doing it. But I was, and I realized at that point in time just how much the cold was actually really good for me, and that whole practice that week. But we also did a sweat lodge while we were there that week too. And so you got the opposite. That was the fire and the ice. So you got the opposite effect with the fire, going in there and really sweating and releasing so many toxins. So the three practices together were things that really had so many incredible benefits to them. You know, health and beauty benefits of breath work are things like the increased oxygen in your body that contributes to radiance, to glow. The breath itself detoxifies, it rejuvenates, and it reconnects you to that inner glow. And it's not just an emotional thing too, because breathwork has a powerful, powerful emotional release to it when you breathe deep. But it's biological, it's energetic, and it's cellular. And the cold and the hot were really good for the nervous system as well, right? Cold plunges to this day are something that I do. When I first came back, I already had a sauna blanket. So I was using my sauna blanket at home. And I have a sauna, regular sauna. So I use that sometimes, but I have the sauna blanket even if I want to travel with it. And I'm having a cold plunge actually installed as well. But in the meantime, a cold shower still works also. And also being able to move back and forth between the hot and the cold, it really stimulates the system. Cold plunges activate your life force. They activate lymphatic flow. The sauna will detoxify. It will release stagnation, release stress. And both of those things together, I think, are also something that have contributed to the glow. I've been doing that regularly for probably the last year and a half since I got back from the breathwork journey. And I've definitely seen the difference in that. And again, I mentioned that I got certified as a facilitator in this form of breathwork in particular, because I believe so strongly in it. And I know that it contributes to that flourish glow. I know how it makes me feel, both, you know, releasing the emotions, but also just getting all that vitality in your body, being able to really feel your life force and energy again. It's just so powerful. So I got certified in it so I could actually bring it into my practice. And it's part of my Flourish membership. Every month we do what I call a somatic magic session, and that is a 9D breathwork journey. It's done virtually. So everybody who shows up is, you know, they're having their own experience in the comfort of their own home, and I'm facilitating the journey over Zoom. But these releases are incredibly powerful. And like I said, it was so important to me. And I knew how powerful it was that I incorporated it into the membership, because I know that it supports the flourishing of all of the members, of anybody who wants to go in and go deep with it. They have to do their own cold plunges and sauna if they want at home. But again, these are powerful practices that I know have helped with the inner glow. Another one that I've done and I've been doing for about the last year on a regular basis is floating. So if you've never been in a float tank before, you go in and there are these huge tanks and they're filled with water and Epsom salt, thousands of pounds. I think it's thousands of pounds of Epsom salt. And so you're floating in there and it's a deprivation tank. So when they close it, there's no stimuli. You don't have sound. You don't have light. There's nothing. It's just you and your thoughts. And it's one of the best things that I've done for myself in terms of being able to just clear out the monkey mind, find the stillness. Breath work helps with monkey mind as well, but both of these practices together are something that I do on a regular basis. And the more I've done it, the more that it opens up greater levels of creativity. I'm just not in that place where my head is constantly caught up in thoughts that I can't get myself out of. Right there. So these are incredible practices, I think, that really have that ability to affect your outer glow. And then, yes, there are some of the basics. I mentioned before, nutrition and water. I drink structured water. The nutrition, whole foods that actually are living or that have been living. When you're eating all that processed stuff, you're putting non-living stuff into your body, right? Whole foods that have been living have life force energy to them. And with that said, when you look at the types of foods, like if you're eating food that has been, animal products that maybe the animals are not treated well, that's also going to have an impact on you and your body. So taking a look at making sure that the products are organic, that they're humanely raised, all of that's going to have an impact on your outer glow. And sleep, big one, right? So I am a firm believer of the 8 hours at this point, and get it religiously. And then sunlight. I am super fair. So for years, I spent no time in the sun at all, religiously, thinking I was doing the right thing and having my sunscreen on and all that if I did go out. But now I know that sun is actually really important also. And I'm not afraid of it. I'm not afraid to go out. I'm not afraid of getting burned. I still wear sunscreen if I need it. But I go out on a regular basis to get sun because it gives me life force energy. I feel it. I do sun gazing with the eyes closed and allow myself to take in that energy, even if it's just for a few minutes a day. So I hope these are some tips that really help you here. Remember that beauty is something that can begin with a simple breath. And I think one thing that I'd love for you to take away from this session today is you don't need to do fillers or use filters when you release what no longer fulfills you or fills you. So here's what I want you to know. Radiance is not something that's reserved for a lucky few. It's not something that you earn by hustling harder. It's not something that you find in a product or a protocol. Your glow is something that is the natural result of alignment, of honoring your energy and the way your energy works, of choosing what feels true and releasing what doesn't. And if today's episode spoke to you, if it lit something inside of you, come be a part of the deeper work. You can join me for an upcoming somatic magic breathwork journey, or you can explore the ongoing support and transformation inside Flourish Alchemy, where I can support you with all of this. And that includes a monthly breathwork journey. And if this conversation has inspired you, I would love for you to share it. Send it to a friend, post it on Instagram, leave a review. It helps more women to find their way to this work, and it means the world to me. You deserve to feel alive, to feel on purpose, and to feel lit from within. And you don't have to do it alone. And you deserve to have a glow that everybody is commenting on and asking you, what have you done? My hopes is that you will get those type of comments and that you'll give them some of the secrets too. Everybody deserves to glow and everybody deserves to flourish. So thanks for listening, and I will see you next time on the Flourish Frequency. Thank you for tuning in to the Flourish Frequency Show with me, Beth Larsen. I hope you've enjoyed this episode and are leaving with a heart full of inspiration and a mind buzzing with the possibilities of more. Tune in every third Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio for more frequency boosting conversations. And if you want more help getting into your Flourish flow and stepping into the possibilities of more, you can find me at BethLarsenCoaching.com. That's BethLarsenCoaching.com, Larsen with an E.